myself, Rhulani Baloyi. You are most welcome. All of you are joining us on Facebook. We are asking you to please start tuning in to our page on YouTube. Please, when you are there, subscribe so that you do not miss most of our programs that we have under Bold Moves Radio. Because by the end of this month, the month of March, we shall be migrating permanently into YouTube. We will no longer be broadcasting through Facebook. All of you are joining us on Bold Moves Radio. You are welcome, and we encourage you. Whatever questions you have with our guest, any comment you would like to make, you can drop that on our WhatsApp number. That is 081 358 And of course, all of you on Facebook and YouTube, you can drop your comments, your questions on the comment section. We will love to converse with you. We will appreciate a conversation with you. And of course, Prudent Woman comes to you every Sunday, 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock. We are with you and we are talking on any issue that pertains to women. We are always here with you. We would like to start conversations with you on issues that can spark our thinking to make us to be prudent women indeed. And tonight, as we conclude our financial matters series, I still have with me Sis Ingrid Harris. She is right here with us. For all of you who have not listened to our previous shows, please, you can go back and view those. We had a 3-week series on financial matters. You are welcome to go back to our recordings and listen. But tonight we are talking on a very important subject, a subject that is very important because it's pertaining to life and death. We are talking on medical aid. Most of the time, as human beings, as people, we tend to look at medical aid as a luxury. But you'll all agree with me in South Africa that a medical aid is no longer a luxury because of the state of our public sector health provisions, health services. So today we are going to be talking on medical aid, and Sis Ingrid is going to be taking us through very important content, which will assist us at the end of the show with a little bit of more research for us to be able to know how to choose a medical aid and which one is appropriate. Because I have tend to realize that a medical aid is not one size fits all, but it is tailor-made. You must look at your certain your conditions. You must look at your profile as a client to say, is this suitable to what you are looking for, the assistance that you would like the medical aid to bring in terms of providing health services for you. So tonight, as I've indicated, I have with me Ingrid Harris. She is here to educate us on medical aid. Ingrid, as you welcome our audience, as you greet our audience, I would also like to invite you. Maybe if you can just explain to us, when we say this is a medical aid, what are we talking about? What is it? What is a medical aid?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate once again being with you and your audience. Sure, medical aid is one of those products that everyone wants, but yet we don't understand it so fully, or we do have it, but we don't use it optimally. And it's so important to make sure that you understand what medical aid is, and if you obviously do have that particular tool, how are you using it optimally? So the question is, what is medical aid? And the simplest way to explain it is it's almost like car insurance. Example. So let's think about car insurance. Obviously, you take out car insurance because if in the event, if anything happens to you, if your car gets bumped, that you obviously are covered for your for any liabilities that you might go through. Or for instance, if your car needs to be fixed. So see your body as the same. Obviously, when you go through a certain, you need some medical support, or you need to go through a specialist, or you need to get your ignitions and things, your internal ignitions checked. Where do you get that funding from? And that is what a medical aid is for. So yes, there is, we use different terminology, such as medical schemes, medical insurance, medical, I think they've got these other sectors who also call it different things, but it's important to make sure whatever you have, you actually, it's aligned with your needs. So in a nutshell, Medical aid is basically there to make sure that you don't have that financial burden that comes with if you have to go and see a specialist or you have to go and see go in hospital, because that is a big if you've experienced how much specialists cost or how what from in a private sector cost, it's an exorbitant amount of money. So obviously that is to make sure that you don't have to dig into your emergency fund, that you don't have to go into your savings, that you don't have to dig into your living expenses, that you don't have to start selling things to make sure that you actually get the particular needs that you need, because I mean, if a doctor says to you that you're not well, you're just thinking about the people that you're leaving behind. If you've got little ones, if you've got family, you're thinking about how can I continue. The fact that you've got medical aid gives you a sense of certainty to say, you know what, I at least have the tools to at least help me to go through that particular through that moment in my life.
No, and that's very true. And as you say, Ingrid, that in the market, there's quite a number of terminologies that are being used, medical aid, medical scheme, and all that. But I've come across a word called medical insurance. Is it the same as a medical aid? Because in most cases, I've realized that a medical insurance seems to be a little bit cheaper and it's tempting to
Sounds
go
like
for that
magic.
one. Yes, sounds like magic. Is it medical aid?
No. So medical aid is not governed by the Medical Council. Medical aid, medical insurance is not governed by the Medical Council. So it is two different things. You'll find that medical aid is obviously more pricey than medical insurance. Medical insurance is basically there to assist you in the event of, say there is an emergency, so remember there's different forms, different packages that you can get. And obviously also when you do a request for a quote from some of these providers, they've got different packages, and they have things like where they give you a cashback, for instance, or they give you like emergency cover, or they say it's in hospital. But remember, that is only for when there's actually an emergency. To say, is there an emergency? Then we're going to be taking you to a private facility. And also remember, that is just, they actually just stabilize you.
Also, an emergency, because I mean, a lay person like myself, I would be thinking when you say there must be an emergency, all sicknesses would be emergency to me.
Yeah.
So, if I happen to be sick, will that be counted as emergency?
No.
If I'm scheduled for a procedure, is that an emergency?
No. So they've got different packages that they have in a health insurance, where they, for instance, say if you want to see a specialist, you can go to these particular doctors. Usually the doctors that they partner with is people that actually can do whichever service or whichever surgery in their offices. So it's not at the hospital. So if you need to get treated at a hospital, that insurance will not support you. Okay. So if, for instance, if you need to have you've in an accident and you need to obviously go through casualties and you need to be admitted, that is a life or death. They will obviously stabilize you. Certain insurances give you a certain package where they say, okay, we will cover you for a certain amount, where they either 50,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000, whatever package they. But remember, the only reason why you start using that you get there is because you are, it's life or death. That is how you end up there. It's a heart attack. You're going to lose your life. They admit you. You get to hospital. You obviously go to a private hospital. But say, for instance, now you want to take out your tonsils. That's not there for tonsil. For planned procedures, that is not there for those things. So remember, the difference between a medical aid and a medical insurance is, it's just like anything. It's like car insurance, as I said. You obviously have a comprehensive plan, and you pay a little bit more for the benefits and the coverage that you're going to be getting. The same with medical insurance versus medical aid. But also remember, something that is very, very important to remember is, if we talk about medical insurance, because it's not governed by the council, it's not classified as medical aid. So a lot of people are, for years, they are on a medical insurance. And what happens is, now they hit the age of 40 and they say, we want to go over to a medical aid. And then they've got penalties. And we obviously will discuss that in a more detail later. But then they say, but I've been on medical aid for so long. And then they say, no, you haven't been on a medical aid. You've been on medical insurance. So where medical insurance is perfect is for instance, if you wanna see a specialist, if you, for instance, wanna do day-to-day consultation, they do have, and obviously for the person who doesn't have money to actually pay for insurance or for medical aid. Medical insurance is perfect for that client who's got little ones, who say, you know what, if my child gets sick, if something happens, if they fall off and they break their arm, would I be able to admit them? Will I be able to get that treatment? So that is just, it's like a starter pack, it's a starter pack just for you to say, okay, I've got something before I can, while I'm figuring out how to afford my medical aid, this is something that I start with. But look, I mean, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Wow, thank you so much. It's something that I know. I've had quite a number of people that I know who thought they've got medical aid, and exactly what you have said. When you reach a certain age, you want now to change and take the medical aid, and they say to you, "No, you have not been in a medical aid, and you thought you were in a medical aid." In the medical insurance. So today we are getting learned to understand it's not magic with the medical insurance, because it turns, I was fascinated by this to say, oh, this one seems the amount that I have to pay, it's 20% of what I'm being demanded from a medical aid. And it's tempting, we all want money. We all want to save. We want to have this income that is remaining for us to spoil ourselves. So you are tempted to go with the medical insurance. And thank you so much for clarifying that. I think most ladies here and everyone listening to us, you could hear what she's saying. There's a difference between a medical aid and medical insurance. But for the topic of tonight, we are talking on medical aid. And it is our wish and desire that at the end of this show, as you continue to make research and enhance your life, you'll be able to choose the right medical aid for your needs, and more especially for your family. Because, Ingrid, it's very challenging. Most of the time, when you take a product that is not suitable for you, you tend to drop it along the way. And as you said, there are penalties, we'll talk about them. But coming back to the medical aid, what is it that one needs to be able to join a medical aid? As you answer that question, it's my desire that you also touch mainly on the young people who have just started working, because there's some, myth to think you should join a medical aid at a later stage. But what is it that you need for you to be saying, I can be in a medical scheme in my own person?
So it's so yes, the desire is obviously that the child has always been on the parents' medical aid, and then when they hit 21, they obviously go on their own medical aid. And when they do get to that age, it's what they, with most companies, what they will require is for you to obviously send your ID, a copy of your ID, copy of your bank statement. Say if you want to put your parents on there, obviously proof of that. But in all and honesty, no provider will ever decline you for wanting. So now, for instance, if I say I'm not working, I'm 22 years old, I want a medical aid, I've got someone who's obviously sponsoring for me. Can they say they won't pay for me because I'm not employed? So a medical aid is not like life insurance where they say they've checked your medicals and we can decline you. On medical aid, they have to accept anyone, right? But the question is always, who can be on a medical aid? Because I think, as we discussed at some point, black tax, the reality is we do have siblings who don't have medical aid, and we want to put everyone on there. We want to put the aunt's child on there, who's obviously, that one is a drunkard. So we want to make sure that child is also on there. So the rule of thumb is basically that it's your dependents. So everyone is dependent on you. So it's yourself, your husband, and obviously your kids. If the minute your child hits 21, then it's going to be an adult dependent. If it is if you are covering your parents-in-law, your parents and your parents-in-law, they will be adult dependents. So the question is, if I have a boyfriend, can I add him? No, you cannot add him because he's actually not your spouse unless if you can prove. So yes, we get fat and sit in you if you can prove that this person was dependent on you. Only once you've proven yes the person can be um you know but in all honesty, no, you can't have your friend on your medical aid, and you can't. I've had some certain circumstances, situations where there was children, for instance, the parent person will say, but listen, this child is dependent on me, the parent is not working. um, there is a moment when they actually allow for that, as long as you can prove that you are actually the provide you the child is yes, you supporting the child. So yes, there's obviously, I know that there's always seem certain red tape, where they say you need to have this, you need to have that. But I must say, from the providers that I've ever dealt with, they don't just look at it in red, black and white. They always look at how can we actually provide the client with the value that they want, or what they are saying they need. And they'll meet you halfway. So as long as you are transparent and you actually share with them what the realities, and there should be no non-disclosures. You shouldn't say this is my child and then it's not your child. We've had instances where people will go to a medical aid, will say, you know what, going to the child, and they'll actually to the doctor and say they take the cousin's child and say, just say that it's you, when you get there. The reality is, it's such a, remember, that is also record. So imagine you've taken your instead of taking your child, you took your cousin's child to the doctor.
Yeah, I think that one.
Yeah.
I would want us to focus
Okay.
on it, because I know it's a challenge that most of us have.
Yeah.
And we are not aware of the implications
Okay.
that one can have. But I would like us to go on an ad break.
Certainly.
When we come back, I would want us to zoom into the regulations for medical aid and the implications of what you wanted to say.
Okay.
Let us go on an ad break.
Shouldn't maybe bring the mic a little bit closer? Should I go a bit forward? Is it fine? Yeah. Okay. Is it still dark?
Welcome back to Gold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman. We are with you every Sunday, 4 o'clock until 5 o'clock. Tonight, we are talking on medical aid. We have our sister Ingrid. She's from the financial services sector. She is talking to us about medical aid. Before we went on an ad break, you were still telling us of who can be in a medical aid, in your medical aid. And we have learned that you cannot just take a random person and place them as you, they call them beneficiaries. No?
Your dependents.
Your dependents. Yeah. They cannot just be your dependents. It must be someone that is you are responsible for, you are supporting.
Yes.
But you mentioned something very important, something that I know we tend to do it and not even realize that it's fraudulent. But beyond being fraudulent, there are huge implications in the future. You were talking about me taking my child, taking my cousin and to the doctor and say you are my child, because it's a care. The doctor obviously will not know that this is not my son or my daughter. So, and I said, let us talk about it. I will wish for us to zoom in it, because I think it's something that we tend to do and not understand the implications. You were talking about.
Yeah, I think we obviously, when people do that, they do it with good intent. But they don't realize that those things are on your record forever. So if I've taken my brother's child into the doctor, and the doctor has diagnosed him with diabetes, now obviously, according to the records, it seems that it's my child. So if anything has to say, for instance, a couple of years later, my child wants to have life insurance. They're going to say, but this is, it's an my child was like, well, listen, I've never had diabetes. And they will say, but there's records proving this. So those things stay on the system forever. It doesn't go away, and it's things that we just, and as I said, we know that people do it because they do it with good intent, but there's different ways to obviously to support people in making sure that the kids are also provided for.
Mm. Wow, I see most of our guests, of our viewers here, they've got questions on medical aid. It's something that all of us, we take it. We have medical aid, or sometimes we don't have a medical aid because we are unsure of what I need to do. Because as I said, when we're starting to say, we tend to just look at the premium, how much I'm supposed to pay, and at times you are misled by the medical insurance because the amount is very little.
Mm.
I see some of our viewers are asking that there's a lot of medical aid in the market,
Mm.
but how does one choose?
Mm.
So maybe if you can take us through the different medical aids which are there,
Mm.
and how do now, as a person, how do I choose the one that is suitable for my circumstances?
Mm. So yes, I agree with you 100%. The market is flooded with options for clients, and and it's so important to understand obviously your needs. So a younger person will obviously have a totally different need from an elderly person,
Mm.
um, and in each and every, it doesn't matter to which provider you go to,
Yeah.
there will be a package that they can obviously provide for you, but you need to be very clear with what is your chronic need. So I would always say, if you contact a provider, or if you sit with your financial advisor, be clear with what your needs are.
Mm.
So, do I have kids? If you do have kids, does your kids have special needs? Do they take certain medication that is a chronic need? Yourself, do you have a chronic need? Be clear with, are you traveling? Do you need to have, do you need to be able to, yes, do you need to be able to go to any doctor or any hospital? Are you particular? Some people are very specific where they want to go to. Things like, what is my what is the preference of the doctors that I go to? What the chronic need? Is it actually listed as a provide as on the provider that you provide, on the providers list?
Mm.
And also, so it's so important. Let's not even stop at a chronic need. So you can say you've got asthma,
Yeah.
but at the same time, because of your particular the medication that you're on, it's not prescribed there. Because remember, each and every medical aid has a certain code that they actually say, okay, this chronic need is linked to that. If you're taking something else, then you will have to have an additional pay in.
Mm.
And so the more information you give your financial advisor, or actually the provider that you're sitting with, that you're actually contacting for a quotation,
Mm.
they will be able to give you a package that suits your needs. Because now remember, for a for someone who's got a child, they obviously need certain things. They want day-to-day cover in there. And the beautiful thing about today's packages that we have is that you can actually tailor make it accordingly. So yes, we spoke about health insurance.
Mm.
Because health insurance is not a medical aid, you can actually partner the two together. So, say for instance, if I have a medical aid, actual medical aid with Discovery or whatever company, but my husband has got a medical insurance. Now,
Mm.
remember, medical insurance is great for that emergency and for that day to day. If you don't want to tap into your day to day cover, that is where you can actually utilize the insurance from.
Mm.
So, and it's also a lower premium. So, there's ways how you can couple it together. But as I said, you need to be clear with the financial advisor so he can give you options.
Mm.
And yes, each and every provider has got a different package for a different person. As a youngster who's, for instance, at varsity, they don't have chronic needs.
Mm.
They say, you know what, I don't get sick. Why do you want to give me day to day? I don't have to pay for that. So the financial advisor or the provider is going to say, okay, take this particular package. I, for instance, myself, I say, you know what, I don't have a chronic need. My family doesn't have a chronic need. I just want a hospital package, for instance, in the event if we need to have planned procedures. So that is there. But now the question is, how do I make provision for my day to day if my kids are sick?
Mm.
And then there's obviously ways of ways to counter that.
Mm.
So you can actually package your medical aid in such a way to make sense to you. And that's why I'm saying it's important for you to be clear on what you want and what your needs are, because then we can say, but you know what, instead of paying the expensive plan, you have said to me you need this. The cheaper package has got this, but we can actually just add this particular thing on your medical aid. We can actually just give you a gap cover, or we can give you this, or we can give you that, a health saver. And there's obviously certain things that you can add to your medical aid instead of having to pay the most expensive one. And you can decide what is more affordable for you at the end of the day. But it's to be clear on what you actually want. All providers have got great plans. Each and every providers. I mean, it doesn't matter which provider you go in the market. But I had a client, for instance, a couple of weeks ago. They obviously wanted the cheapest plan. And they looked at and usually the one that is the cheapest, they usually go according to income streams. Those plans are tailor-made for kids, for youngsters who are at varsity, for, the young professional, because they're not going to go for a hip replacement. you know they're not going to go for a hip replacement. But now we want to actually say, but I actually want the cheaper package. You get this cheaper package for your needs. It's not going to serve your purpose. So that's why I'm saying it's so important to actually be clear on what. Yes, there's cheaper plans, but will the cheaper plan actually work for you? Mm. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Mm.
something of that sort. But what, maybe just take us through what is a chronic, when you say you have chronic, you need to get chronic medication. What is it and how does one access it? I'll tell you why I asked this question. I have a friend who had a challenge for the whole year, having a certain condition, and the medical aid ran out. And it was later that someone advised to say, you will have applied for chronic. So because that condition, it's there, it's not going away. Then with chronic, they will have covered it. There's no such thing as it's ending or something like that. Yeah. So maybe if you can take us through, what is it? What is this chronic, and how does one go on about applying for it? Because most people at our age, they will tend to apply for a medical aid, or they want to join a medical aid because they've been diagnosed of chronic medication. But at times it doesn't work for them because they don't know how to access this chronic cover. Yeah. Okay. So if you go to the doctor and the doctor says to you, you've got hypertension, you need to take this tablet because that means you obviously need to get medication. That prescription you need to send it to your medical aid and they will say, this is where you if you don't tell them, they're not going to know. So what the problem is, what a lot of people do is they go for instance on a medical aid, as you mentioned, when savings are exhausted. So what happens is they've got a chronic need, they either don't know how to access that chronic need, or you shouldn't be paying for it. Right? Unless if they have a waiting period on because they pay behind. Let's say, for instance, now a client starts. Say you get a new medical, and the question is, I've got a chronic need. So you get your script from your doctor. You send it to the medical. Okay, we're going to dispense your medication. So there's different your medication. There's different ways how to get it. Okay. But obviously, if you're on a medical aid, it's supposed to be
certain things are supposed to buy you soft life. Right? So
Yeah, soft life.
yes, these are one of those things. It's to make life a little bit easy for you that you don't have to queue. If you experience, maybe getting your chronic medication, government facility, obviously a day that you need to basically say, you know what, I'm going to go um, to a government facility and they're actually going to, this is a day you make. So how to cut out that process of automatic payments? So with a normal medical aid, they will actually post it through to either deliver it to your workplace or deliver it to your house. That is the beautiful part of obviously
Having medical aid. But the question was, so now as we were talking about the chronic, so that is how they deliver it.
Okay.
But if you don't know what your coding is, so say for instance, the doctor said you need to get a certain medication, and on that certain medication, with your provider that you're with, and it's not linked there as a chronic, they give a different type of script. Go back to your doctor and say, "This is my medical aid that I have. Is there? Can I use one of these? Can you change my script to one of these?
Okay.
Is there a reason why I need to be on this one?" If he says there's a reason why you're on this one, you can't go on the cheaper version because that is on your medical aid. What's going to happen is every time when you get your script, you get you get your chronic needs. Say for instance, your chronic medication is 500 rand. Obviously um, your particular medical aid only covers for the cheaper version, which is 250 rand.
So I must cover
The difference you need to pay. So what happens is, because people have savings, it's an automatic thing. You're not aware of it. So you obviously go to the pharmacy, you swipe your card, you say I'm on medical aid. Where does the pharmacy take the additional 250 out of your savings? You get to June, half of the year, and your savings are depleted. And because we don't go into that detail of what is the formulary. They call it a formulary. You should ask your doctor. So say, this is the formulary that my medical aid actually dispense. This is what you are giving. Can I use that? Would it be a health hazard for me if I move to the other one? So there's a lot of people, for instance, who say, but I don't want the cheaper option. If you don't want the cheaper option, obviously you will pay in. But the reality is it taps into your savings. And once it taps into your savings, that's why people say, I don't have anything in my savings that's depleted.
Okay. So what you are saying is, if it's on chronic, it's only because the medical aid is only willing to pay this much. But if the medical aid is able to pay everything, it does not go off from my medical
100%.
savings.
100%.
Oh, okay.
But also remember, savings are, and if you think about it, your premium is 3,000 rand. If we talk about your savings, it's 10% of what the amount that you are paying. So that's 300 rand. Think about if you have to go to one of the, if you want to go to a doctor, like obviously your doctor of preference, the premium is usually about 700, 800 rand. So if I say my day to day is only 300 rand,
yeah, doesn't match.
It doesn't match.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying we need to go down to that detail to say, okay, so it's 10% that's going to go into savings. Obviously, multiply that with 12. I'm going to, be conscious and be aware. Use it, like actually manage that, just like your budget. It's just like your budget.
And I think it's because we come from an era where we never, medical aid was just, once you have a medical aid, you could go to a doctor every day of the of the month.
Yeah.
And I think that's the reason we are not able to understand that we need to manage this. But today, I think we're getting learned. You are explaining to us that there is a need for us to manage and get to know how much savings you are getting and how are you using your savings. I would like us to go on an ad break. When we come back, I wish for our guest to explain to us, medical aids are expensive, Ingrid, too expensive. So I would not want us to end this show without you telling us the tricks. You've just told us the tricks of managing your medical aid so that come June, you are not finished with your money, but you should be able to manage it for the whole year. So it's again budget.
Yeah.
We're coming to budget on your medical aid. But I would like you to take us through how can one bring the cost of the medical aid down, but still be able to get all that you were looking forward for. So I would like us to go on an end break. When we come back, we shall continue the discussion. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself, Rhulani Baloyi. Tonight I have with me in the studio Ingrid Harris. She's from the financial services sector. She has been taking us through financial matters series. We started 2 weeks back, and today it's our last series. We are talking on medical aid. Please stay with us if you have just joined us. This is Prudent Woman. We are with you every Sunday from 4 o'clock up until 5 o'clock. We've been talking on medical aid, and Ingrid promised us that when we come back, she will help us, to understand on how to bring the cost of a medical aid down. Because, as I was preparing for the show, and of course, as I interact in life myself, I've realized that medical aids are too expensive. So at times you will not blame even those whom you will believe they can afford for them not to be taking a medical aid. But before we went on an ad break, we also realized that sometimes it's because we do not know what a medical aid should look like. We shy away because all that we see is the premium, but not understanding that you can tailor make your package to suit your personal needs, your health needs. So as we come back, Ingrid, how can I bring down the cost of a medical aid, but still have a medical aid? Because we agree with you, medical aid is very important, most especially in a country like ours where we have minimal resources. The public sector is not coping. You need a medical aid. It's not a luxury, it's a need. You really need a medical aid.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we bring the cost down? Medical aid is expensive. I agree with you 100%. And just to touch on that topic, it's before we go into the detail, I think it's interesting how we would find that someone would pay an exorbitant amount on car insurance, but yet the person that's in the car is not taken care of optimally. And I don't know, I guess I beg to ask, why is it that question, the car insurance or my medical aid? And I guess I got to the answer saying that I need my car to get to my workplace.
But you need yourself to be alive.
Yes, you need, that is the primal place where we need to start.
Yeah.
And the thing about medical aid is when the only time when it makes sense to you why you are paying that particular premium is when your loved one is lying in hospital, and you look at that person lying in hospital in a public service sector, and they are saying to you, the facilities or the specialist and the things that the client, your loved one needs, is actually at a private hospital. At that point, when you are thinking, what can I sell? What should I actually do to make sure that this person gets the best? Yes, obviously we can't predict when someone passes on, but at least we can make it a little bit easier, seamless. In your hearts of hearts, you've tried.
Yeah.
And at that point, when that person is lying there and they are saying, we are waiting. We're waiting.
And I can relate with what you have just said. I had an aunt who was diagnosed with cancer. Unfortunately, my aunt was diagnosed at a very late stage because she didn't have a medical aid, and she was working in the public sector, in the health sector. So she when we went to see her on her last days, she said, if you don't have a medical aid, please have one. I did not take a medical aid. I thought it was a waste of money until I went to hospital so many times and they could not diagnose what the problem is. And I decided to join a medical aid. When we finally go to see her, she was in a private hospital. So she said, I felt a lot of pain. For years, I have been in pain. And now lying here, the pain. So I relate with what you're saying to say, let it be seamless. We are all meant to pass on, but let that process be, bearable. You cannot be in pain. So I can relate with what you're saying.
Yeah. So I must say, when you've ever had that experience, you'll ask yourself, is that 1,000 rand, is that 2,000 rand worth it? You know. But yes, also at the same time, we need to think about our pockets and how can we make it more affordable. So a lot of providers currently in the market find a way of obviously tailor-making your package. So some providers, for instance, currently in the market would say, so for instance, myself, when I was staying in Johannesburg, I used to have an expensive package where I would be able to go to any hospital, right? When I moved to Limpopo, at the time when I moved, we only had one hospital, which is Mediclinic. And I said, why am I paying the same amount as someone who's staying in Johannesburg, who's got such array of hospitals? Let me go and reassess how can I actually, make it more affordable. So there is providers in the market who can actually go tailor make your package in such a way, and obviously also from a savings perspective. So so a lot of people, for instance, say, instead of having that 10% going off on my medical aid, let me go on a lower package like a hospital plan, for instance, instead of being on a comprehensive. Instead of me paying that amount, I am prepared to pay 500 Rand. So you put 500 Rand in a savings pocket. It is obviously linked with your medical aid, and it is for medical purposes. So you can, and the nice thing about that is you can actually use that money at any doctor. So you're not limited from what the network is saying that you need to do. So the flexibility from the hospitals, from private hospitals versus network hospitals, those are obviously things that you need to look at. Some providers, for instance, say, are you a chronic user? Are you not a chronic user? You actually get a discount because you are not a chronic user. Do you have little kids? There's obviously a difference. So those are something that else that I found in the market now recently is maybe I'm, for instance, it's me and my husband, but yet my child has got a chronic need.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, when you select chronic, you select on the whole package.
Okay.
So there's actually providers who allow you to say, I just want for that one person in my family.
Okay.
So if anything happens to that one person in my family, I want to make sure that need is provided for. The rest of the family, it's fine. Yeah, fine.
Okay.
So there's ways, and that's why I'm saying you need to be clear on what the options that you're providing. And these things are said in a brochure. It is simple as in the brochures that you get, it's on the internet, of how you can actually tailor make your package. But the most important thing is find out. A lot of providers are actually proving it's not actually just, sometimes they say it's first in the market. A lot of providers are giving it now, saying they are talking about flexibility, of saying how can you be flexible? And the more flexible you are, obviously, you can obviously say, okay, this is what my package are, what I'm comfortable with. But something also that is important to note is, if you've never had medical aid, if you've never had medical aid, and you, for instance, now join a medical aid, there will be a waiting period, right? And if you have existing conditions, there will also be a waiting period on that. So let's just say, for instance, you've got a 3-month waiting period. In those, or let's say you've got a 12-month waiting period. My question is, why do you take the most expensive plan
without cover
if you don't have cover? So yes, if you do have an emergency, you'll obviously be treated. But for existing things, you're not going to be able to use those things. So for instance, you've got a back problem, you actually need an operation at some point. But for that 12 months, why actually pay a medical aid premium that you're not actually going to utilize optimally? So I say, obviously, your intention is to get past that waiting period. So you go on the most expensive, most cheapest, the most affordable package, just to make sure that if you're in the event of an emergency, you will be covered. The 12 months go by. Obviously, if it comes to switching over, you switch over. And that is also a nice way to make your pocket comfortable with what to expect with the most expensive package. And I also take that 12 months to start putting extra money away. Let your pocket become comfortable with the premium that you're going to be paying in the new year.
Wow, what a strategy. I never thought of it, that it makes a lot of sense that I'm on a waiting period. They're not saying when you're on a waiting period, you cannot change to another option. So why don't you go for the lower one? And does that mean if life happens, and this is the time where I'm not able to afford that comprehensive cover, you are allowed to actually downgrade.
Yes, 100%.
So it's about you being informed. And that's what Prudent Woman is all about. We say, let us be informed, let us be intentional in our taking of decisions, in our making of decisions, but let us make sure that whatever that we are doing, it benefits our family members and ourselves. And what she has just said now, I think it liberates one, because most of us, you find that you have not been having a medical aid. And the minute you step into that service provider and say, I'm looking for a medical aid, and they tell you about the waiting period, the 12 months, and you're like, okay, and I'll be paying 8,000 rands for nothing, then thank you, I'm going. And when you could actually go for their lowest and find that their lowest is about 2,500 and you are covered, because in a case of emergency, they will cover you. That's what you're saying.
100%.
So if I get involved in an accident, even during a waiting period, I'm covered, but only for the conditions that are pre-existing.
Pre-existing conditions.
No, thank you so much. I do not know how much we can thank you to say, you are bringing the light to us. These things are there, but when no one has really opened up to you, you don't understand. I never saw it, a medical aid, as something that one can sit with a financial advisor or someone to help them to choose, to package. As you rightfully put it, we always want to go to the dealership and say, I want to build my own car. But we don't know about other things. We tend to think they are just the way they are. And we are drawing close to 5 o'clock, but I would like us to talk on, we were talking now on bringing the cost down. When I was doing my research, I came across gap cover. I came across network providers, something that I know. We tend, even myself, I ran away from a medical aid, a plan, because they were telling me about network, until I found out that it actually works for me, and I didn't know, because I thought you must be able to go everywhere. Yeah. So I would like us to go on an ad break. When we come back, as we conclude our discussions, let's talk on the gap cover, how it works, how it can help me, the network providers, how it brings down the costs, because it's about us being able to afford, but whilst we're able to get the right service, because it's not about getting a cheaper one. It's about getting an affordable one, something that I can afford, but whilst I still be able to get the service that I need, or the cover that I need for the medical aid. Let us go on ad break. We'll be right back with you. You are listening to Bold Moves Radio. The show is Prudent Woman with myself, Rhulani Baloyi. I am with my guest this evening, Sis Ingrid Harris. She has been with us for the past 2 weeks. Oh, this is the third week, and we're finishing our financial matters series. I will trust that you, our listeners, have learned so much. I am also have been liberated in a number of things on financial issues. Today, we continue our talk on financial matters, but we are talking on medical aids. We've been talking, Sis Ingrid, on how to bring down the cost. What do I need to have a medical aid? Who can I cover on my medical aid? Before we went on an ad break, you were talking to us on how to bring the cost down. And I came across what they call a gap cover. I realize it's not a medical aid, but I'm not quite clear what a gap cover is. How can a gap cover assist one to bring the cost of medical aid down?
So a typical thing, for instance, is if for instance, you are on the lowest plan, right? And your medical and your in hospital is maybe 100% rates, 100% rates, right? And if you add, so now you think, sure, if I, for, just for me to have 200%, or if I want a 300% plan, I obviously have to pay, I need to go up And the premium of that is usually an exorbitant amount. Remember, because half of the time we're covering our entire families and not just us. So if that is the only reason why you are thinking about having to move up to a top plan, which is obviously more expensive, I would say add a gap cover. And a gap cover is exactly what it says. It covers the gap, what insurance, what medical insurance, what your current medical insurance are not covering. So, say for instance, you are in hospital, and it usually happens where in Limpopo, where for instance we are in hospital here, but they say the specialist that you need to see is in a different province, and here you travel to a different province, and that particular doctor says, specialist says, listen, you've got 100% rate, but my rate is say 200%. The question is, if your premium is obviously the cost is 10,000 rand, or the medical aid covers 10,000 rand, you obviously need to do another 10,000 rand, because obviously we need to cover the specialist. So that is, where do you get that money from? So that is where the gap cover kicks in. Gap cover does not, what gap cover does not cover is, it does not cover, for instance, if our medical aid says, listen, I don't cover for this, and you say, okay, I'm going to get it from my gap cover.
Oh,
It
okay.
just covers a shortfall.
So the medical aid should have already paid before I get the gap covered.
Yes. So so these days it's seamless. You are lying in hospital and these people are having conversations with each other, right? And there's providers who actually make it so simple that by the time you leave the hospital, you know the money is paid to them. So yes, they obviously make sure that the rest is paid.
Okay. So a gap cover covers the difference that I'm supposed to be covered for once my medical aid has kicked in and paid. Now I know that certain plans, they will say you use a network provider.
Yeah.
What will a network provider be? Because what I've observed is that when you use a plan that uses network providers, it gets to be cheaper. The plan becomes cheaper, but you have to choose between certain number of doctors. I would want to understand what is a network provider, and is it possible that I can use someone? Because I think the fear that we have is that if I choose a plan that says to me, you use a network provider, what if I'm not there and I'm somewhere and I need medical attention?
So a network provider is basically just, all that it says is that you've got a whole list on this plan that you are. You have a whole list of client of doctors that you can use. And what people generally do is they link it to the area that they are in. So, with instance, in Polokwane, say for instance, the particular package that I've selected, the medical aid that I've selected, only has 2 doctors that I'm, for instance, saying that I'm not comfortable with. But remember, there's other provinces, there's other areas, there's Modimole, there's other areas. Look at the other list, there's extensive list. It doesn't matter where you are, you just go on that list. The only reality is, if you step out of that list, is that there is where you're going to pay. So it doesn't matter where you are. So a lot of people, for instance, say, like, for instance, they say your network provider in hospitals, for instance, is a Mediclinic, just an example, right? But remember, there's a Mediclinic in here. Yeah, there's a Mediclinic in Zanin. There's one in Gauteng. So you can go to obviously whatever is on your list. So they will list all the Mediclinics that you can possibly go to, all the doctors that you can possibly go to. So don't just structure it according to your geographical area. And I think that is the problem that we make, is we link it to our surrounding areas. And remember, like, people who stay, for instance, in areas like Bela Bela, they don't have a lot of options. So the reality is they have to go far as Pretoria. So they've got a lot of people that they can use. So they don't, not just going to say, but my providers are here. So yes, if they obviously, that it can be a problem in the event of an emergency, for instance, right? You say, I can't, if I do go to another doctor, but I mean, they will stabilize you. You go to the other doctor where you want to go. You go to hospital if it's in the event of
Also, the medical aid will still pay for an emergency for me to be stabilized, and then I get transferred to the network.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no problem.
And also remember that, so say for instance, if you do go out of it, if you go to a doctor, to a hospital or to a doctor that is out of your network,
Mm.
they will cover the portion and you will just pay the other rest, whatever
Okay.
is the amount that they charge.
Mm.
So they know
Which
you,
is above the medical aid rate.
yes.
So let's say I go to a non-network, but they're charging within the medical aid. There won't be any provision.
So it would never be like that because there's a reason why the medical aid actually clusters certain amounts, certain hospitals and certain doctors together. It's
Okay.
to actually to make sure that you don't get overcharged. So there is doctors who obviously say, you know what, oh, I can see this person's got a medical aid. I want to capitalize on this.
Oh, so they actually get into an agreement.
Yes.
So it actually works well for you if you're having a medical savings account.
So it basically helps you just so they can't capitalize on the fact. Because remember, you can imagine if you've got a gap cover and you go into a hospital, any hospital,
Mm.
and they say you've got gap, I can say, okay, well, if you've got gap, let me like I can even say I've got 500. That is my percentage that I charge.
Tonight I'm seeing the network providers in a different light. You know, I had always thought, oh, this one is to my disadvantage. But what I'm realizing is that the medical aid goes out with their authority in the industry and represent me as a client. That's what you are saying. Because then they're able to negotiate my pricing with service providers. And as an individual, it's not simple for me to go and negotiate such things. So when you use network providers, it assists you to make sure that you manage that medical savings that we were talking about. To say you need to be in control of your medical.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, makes a lot of sense,
Yeah.
eh?
Yeah. And the only thing is because we don't see that detail. And when with any plan that you are, it doesn't matter with which company you are with
Mm,
or provider you are with, ask them for the list of according to the region, according to the area, where's all the doctors, what is the actual medication that is linked to this particular plan?
mm,
Because then you're making a you don't just go in there and swiping your card and saying, I've got a medical aid.
mm.
This is your money and you need to make sure that you actually use it optimally. So it's a yeah, there's many ways to skin this one, eh?
Yeah, yeah. But thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is an area that we never speak about. And as I indicated that previously, when you have a medical aid, you could do anything. When you could go to the doctor, you remember there was an era of us even buying shoes. I know
Yeah,
other
yeah,
people can relate
yeah,
with it. We will even buy shoes with the medical aid. You'll put in your gold tooth with the medical aid. And I would like to believe it's because we didn't have competition
yeah.
and we could do as we want. And maybe even the regulations that have come in, of course, plays a very huge role. And our time is gone, and ladies and everyone listening to us, of course, we would have loved for you to get more information out of Ingrid when we talk medical aid, financial matters, but everything comes to an end. But what I would like to uh, maybe as we conclude, a late joiner fee. What is it? And how can one try to make sure that they don't find themselves paying for that late joiner fee? Because what I found out when I was doing the research was scary. And it said to me, once you're 35, 35 or 40, once you're 35, you should just forget. If you have never had a medical aid, you should forget. But I would like to believe there's something that can be done because I know our lawmakers in the country always look for the best interest for the country. But of course, it's very important that business should be able to stay in business.
So when we speak about late joiner penalty, it is obviously important for us to understand how medical aid is actually funded. So, in a nutshell, the young sponsors the old, or
Mm,
the healthy sponsors the unhealthy. So, if you, for instance, have to think about what the costing would be, for instance, if you go to a specialist, it's an exorbitant amount. And if you need those regular checkups as an unhealthy person,
mm,
there's no way the premium that you even pay would be able to cover that.
mm,
So the assumption or how the calculation is worked is that
the younger that you're on the plan, you obviously, when you're younger, that you are almost like paying for the right. Yes, it's almost for the right for you to be able to use this particular service, right? So the minute you hit 35 and you haven't had medical aid, after 35 is usually the time that obviously now you start having needs. And after 35, we say, because you've never had medical aid, now we start putting penalties. So anyone who doesn't have medical aid after, as after 35, you will get later on a penalty. And the penalty can range from 5% to 75%. And sometimes that is a hefty amount. There's no way you can move away from that. Once it's the best thing is to if medical aid is expensive for you, go on the lowest plan. There's a lot of companies who offer income bands where they say where you say, for instance, you prove you put your salary down and you say, um, I've got I'm a dependent or I'm a pensioner, or then they say to you, based on this is in the premium that you could be paying, at least you've got a medical aid, right? So a lot of people, for instance, say, I'm not working right now, but get on the lowest income band. Then at least you've got medical aid up until 35. After 35, once you start working, then you can up to instead of having that penalty, because that penalty is for life.
For life. Yeah, that's what I found out when I was doing my research. Thank you so much, Ingrid. Thank you for the 3 weeks that you have given unto us. But we trust that you'll be back in Prudent Woman. We have a lot. Ladies have got a lot to talk about. And when you talk money, that's where you touch the heart of a woman. But for tonight's show, I see what's important. What I'm getting from you is that you need to know your medical needs, your current condition, future expected needs, and your budget in order to have the right medical aid. We cannot thank you enough. I would like to say to our viewers, I trust that you have benefited. But as we say in Prudent Woman, we kickstart the conversation. So we have started go and research. We have learned today that with medical aid, it's not something that you go and buy off the shelf. It's something that you can tailor make according to your needs and your budget. I would like to invite you as we come to the end of the show to have a parting shot for our viewers.
Thank you once again for this platform. All I would say is that the world is our oyster. There is so much information out there. Utilize it. Do a little bit of research. Don't just use your medical aid blindly or any policy that you have blindly. Take your power back. Medical aid can be a beautiful story if you actually utilize it optimally. But you need to make sure that this premium that you're paying every month, it's got a reason. There's a reason why you're paying for it. And if it doesn't make sense to you, then you shouldn't have a medical aid, because then you're wasting money. But from a parting note, thank you so much once again for this opportunity. I can't say thank you enough. I'm really honored to have had this opportunity to speak to you and your audience.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. To our viewers, thank you so much. Tonight, we have in the studio our producers, Rufu and Musa. Thank you so much. And to our executive producer, Pastor Strike, we would like to say thank you. And we would like to invite you, our viewers and listeners, please subscribe to our YouTube channel to continue with the different shows that we are having. We've got very informative shows that run from Monday to Sunday. Tomorrow, every morning, from Monday until Friday, we have a prayer session from 6 o'clock up until half past 6. And on Tuesday, we've got the African Experience. On Thursday, we've got Love SA. On Saturday, we've got Munkonzi Atingwazi. On Sunday, we, of course, have Prudent Woman and a choral show that comes in at 2 o'clock. Please join us. Our shows are very informative, and we would like you to drop down all the topics that you want us to cover. So if you have something that you wish for us to talk about, to bring in an expert who will be able to educate the ladies, you are welcome. Please drop them down on the comment section, or you can send us a WhatsApp on 081 358 8745. We will be back with you next week, same time, same place. Have a blessed week.